Hello, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter, your Las Vegas Raiders beat writer on SI and the host of the Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast. Welcome to Super Bowl week. Going to have a bunch of shows from New Orleans, of course, for you for the Super Bowl week. Got a lot of coverage, Raider specific, down in New Orleans, talking to people around the league about the Raiders, all that's going on with the Raiders. So make sure you keep tuned with us. Going to talk to you today about the cast of characters being assembled in the desert because I think this is really, really important. I want to go back to when this whole process started when they let Antonio Pierce go. And I told you at the time that they were going to cast a wide net because that's what smart teams do. And I told you that they wanted to come and get a coach with experience, that they felt like there was a lot of things that hurt the Raiders in 2024 that were experience related, but that they were open to be Tomlin. You may remember I introduced you to the term Tomlin. Many of you had never heard that term before, although it's a term in the NFL. And the Raiders were Tomlin by Ben Johnson, as you heard Mark Davis say that they had a guy that they um, really liked who decided to go to another team, so they switched to Pete Carroll. Of course, talking about Ben Johnson. But I want to go back because it was either the first or the second, but one of the very first people they interviewed was Pete Carroll, who was an absolute legitimate candidate. And then right after they interviewed Ben Johnson over Zoom is when I talked with a member of the organization who told me, and I told you at the time, if that Pete was an absolutely viable candidate, but if they came back to Pete, it would probably be because they had a couple of other people that didn't work out. But the point I wanted to get to was Pete was met every criterion of what they wanted, and he was the first or second. I think he was the first, but I'm going to leave myself a little wiggle room there. He may have been the second, but I believe he was the first that they interviewed. And so, yeah, it didn't work with Vrabel because Mark said no, and it didn't work with Ben Johnson. But you could make an argument that they got their first choice, which was Pete Carroll, because that's who they talked to. It was kind of if you were drawing up the description I gave you of what they wanted in a coach, Pete Carroll fit every one of them. But then watch what happens. Patrick Graham was not coming back here. I can tell you that I don't believe anyone, including Patrick, felt like he was coming back here. And Pete Carroll was absolutely able to sell him. Now, I made the comment when they hired Pete, when he was in college, he was known as the best recruiter in the country. And we were going to find out if he lost it or not. And he did not. And so I would welcome any of you if you see Patrick Graham out and about, say to him, I heard Hondo's podcast. Were you surprised if I'd have told you the day AP got fired, you were coming back? Would you believed you would have signed a contract? And I know Patrick, I know him well, and he's not a liar. I believe he would 100% tell you, no, I didn't think I was coming back. And it wasn't because the Raiders didn't want him. I just don't think he was coming back. But Pete Carroll was able to sell him. Then keeping of Robbie Leonard, which was mammoth. But now I want to turn to a story we wrote last night on Sunday, and it's early in the morning now. I think it's like 4 in the morning, but um, you're going to learn is that Chip Kelly is going to be, if not the highest paid coordinator, one of the highest paid coordinators in the NFL. Some of the new guys, they don't necessarily know what they make, but I was told that if he's not the number one, it's going to be one of the elite because I told you money was not an issue with the Raiders, had no issue. The Raiders could not make an offer to Ben Johnson because he was still coaching. But I had told you that they were not going to lose Ben Johnson because of money. I also told you that the word around the street in the NFL was that it was probably going to cost the Raiders a 6-year, $15 million per year guaranteed to get Ben and the Raiders. And when I asked the person in the organization, I was told if he doesn't come here, it's not going to be because of money. That said, he goes and ends up signing for 13 million with the Bears. So he took less money in a state with phenomenally high taxes, both city and state. So it's even less than 13 million a year. So he took a lot less money to go there. The Raiders didn't lose him because of money. Now they go get Chip Kelly. Now, I think you can make an argument outside of his time at Oregon, although I do think he had some good years with Philly, to be fair, that Chip Kelly at best is a marginal head coach. I think you could make that argument. I think there's some who could make the argument that marginal may be a little low, but I think the agreement is I don't think anybody would have been sitting here with lollipops and parades to say, gee, we want our team to hire Chip Kelly as a head coach. But what Chip Kelly is a tremendous offensive mind who has done it with teams that had a lot of talent, and he's done it on some teams that didn't have a lot of talent. And to go get him, to pay him the money. Now remember, they're already paying Patrick Graham very well. And now to go make him one of the highest paid coordinators, if not the highest. I want to make that caveat clear. At 4 in the morning, I don't have the numbers, but I'm not going to call someone. But I was just told if it wasn't the highest, it was one of them. But when you put all of that in together and you put that into a milkshake, you've got the Raiders came into this and said, money will be no object. The only object is winning. So they go get Pete Carroll, which is exactly what they wanted when the whole process started. They go get an elite offensive coach. They keep and retain not only an elite defensive coordinator, but one of the hottest rising stars in Robbie Leonard. You've got Robbie Leonard there so that should Patrick Graham get another job, which is criminal in my mind that he hasn't, you got Robbie Leonard that you can elevate. And it's like, okay. Now I want to address another issue. If you go back and listen to the podcast when I talked about Patrick Graham re-signing with the Raiders, I dropped a nugget in that podcast that that Patrick had the opportunity to go other places for other money, and I didn't address anymore. But you can go back and watch it for proof of performance. And the reason being, but now some of the details have leaked, and I'm going to go ahead and just give them all to you. Moments after the story broke that Patrick Graham was going to re-sign with the Raiders, the Jacksonville Jaguars reached out to him and made it abundantly clear, asking him not to sign a deal, and they were willing to pay him more than what the Raiders are going to pay him. But Patrick Graham nixed it and said, no, I gave my word, and didn't turn it into a bidding war. Now, you saw with Cliff Kingsbury, who had a deal with the Raiders. Bam, Washington comes around. He left. Now, he's welcome to do that. The contract wasn't signed. You may think that was a character flaw in Cliff. You may think it doesn't matter. However you want to deal with it is fine. My opinion is irrelevant. But in the Raiders' defense, it was no, we had a deal. And that's the kind of man that Patrick Graham is. And now that that's out there, congratulations to him. I know for a fact there were several opportunities he could have had and could have had more money, but he stayed and he will continue to do a good job with the Raiders. So let's start to look at the cast of characters that they're assembling. You go get a certain Hall of Famer in Pete Carroll. I don't know how you don't give that hiring an A. You may say, well, I don't like the fact he's 73. All right. Well, I don't like the fact I'm fat. I mean, those are irrelevant factors in how a person does their job. Pete Carroll is a wealth of energy. He is a guy that's I heard him described last night, a Philo, first in, last out type of guy. So now Maxx Crosby is going to have some competition for who's the first guy in and the last guy out. He's a ball. He loves talking ball. Um, he's a guy that's going to sit in an offensive meeting. He's going to sit in a defensive meeting. He's going to welcome his high performing players having a say on game plans. He's a guy that's going to walk through the locker room. He's going to spend time with his guys. I was told by a former player of his, he's going to know everybody's name, wives, girlfriends' names, children's names. If your kid's playing on a croquet team, hey, how's little Jimmy's croquet team? That's the kind of guy that he is. You bring in a Chip Kelly, which is all offense all the time, creativity out of the box. Great. Now, I'm going to compare it a little bit to Cliff. Cliff Kingsbury has had success with a certain type of offensive scheme. Chip's actually had success with different kinds of quarterbacks. He's had guys that were very mobile. He's had some success with guys that are mobile. One of them, my buddy Nick Foles. Um, but so I think he's a better offensive mind than Cliff, and I'm not hating on Cliff. I mean, let's give Cliff all the credit. He does a terrific job coaching offensive football, and he deserves all that credit. But I think that Chip Kelly is better than him. And congratulations to Mark and the ownership team making the decision. It's only about winning. If we focus only about winning, money cometh. But we've got to focus on the winning and then let the money follow. Now all of a sudden you got players like Maxx Crosby, who I know that some of you choose not to believe this. That's fine. He is only in it for the championships. Maxx Crosby will never be able to spend all the money he has. He owns several multi-million-dollar businesses. Does he want to get paid? Of course he does. Every one of us wants to get paid. But Tom Brady understood, I'll take less if it makes my team better because I know if I win, I'm going to make it up off of the football field. That's going to be the max approach. I want every dime I can get, but I also know there's a lot of money out there for winners, and I'm willing to do whatever's best for the team. I will tell you this, I was very open that I thought the Raiders had work to do to keep Maxx. Maxx was open about that. And I am now completely with what they've done, the relationship that's being built can tell you that I am 100% on board. I don't anticipate there any concern about him getting a new deal. And you start looking at how this team is being put together, the competitiveness, the fire, the juice. They're looking at every avenue. They're looking at every quarterback. They're looking at every evaluation. I've told you, John Spytek. I mean, this is an underrated hire. Now, I get John Spytek's never been in the chair. And when I talk about this being a place that you don't want people to come and learn, I stand by those comments. I made them. But he's also coming in here working for a Tom Brady who he knows intimately and everything he wants. So he's not just like a new guy being brought in who Tom's going to have to teach him what he wants, talk to him about what he wants, establish. No, he's already thoroughly skilled. So that's going to be seamless there. But Spytek is actively, I was told this what is today? Oh, it's Monday morning. I was told yesterday that he is actively watching film, scouting, and evaluating the current roster, the other parts of the scouting staff and other leadership people, Champ Kelly type guys, JoJo Wooten, those guys are out, doing their evaluations on prospects, and a lot is being done as this team is moving forward. And what you're seeing is they are marching with one order. It is to be competitive. It is to win. And it's go, 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 go. I'm going to say this. There was a time under Al Davis where I believe guys were kept around too long because of what they had done. And there's nothing wrong with that. That loyalty to players is a big deal. And I think there's a loyalty to players right now, for sure. But the loyalty, the supreme loyalty, is to win. And so I think the Raiders are going to look under every rock. I don't think they're going to be intimidated in the least bit to go. And I've never talked about this yet. I do not believe there will be any intimidation by this franchise to go swing big. Do I expect them to go swing big for a guy that's at the end of his cycle? No. But do I expect them to go swing big if they've got a chance to go add a young player who's either just at his prime or like a Max just entering his prime? It wouldn't surprise me in the least bit. They are going to be aggressive. Now, aggressive doesn't always mean making a bunch of trades. Sometimes you're aggressive by saying, we're in a really good spot. We don't need to do anything. And then there are times, no, what we need to do is not going to be available of us to stay the line. We've got to go be aggressive. I mean, aggressive can come in many different terms and can come some way. What appears to not be aggressive is aggressive. There are some people that in some franchises that will make moves just so it looks like they're being aggressive. I mean, how many idiotic mistakes have we seen Carolina make and other franchises? But boy, it sure looked like they were being active. Okay. And there's other franchises. I'm not just picking on Carolina, although it's just they've done it a couple of times. But that's not going to be. The Raiders are going to be very detail oriented. Now, I've shared this with you before. And if you didn't watch my interview, I think it was on Friday with Bill Keenest, the longtime team and NFL league official. Go check it out. But John Spytek, even when I was covering the Lions, but when he was young, great listener, very attentive to detail. Now, he got that playing at the University of Michigan. Lloyd Carr was that kind of coach, but he got it, that's where he built his friendship with Tom Brady. And so the little details aren't going to get by him. Now, in credit to previous, the little details didn't get by Tom Telesco or Dave Ziegler either. And so even though you're having three GMs over a 3-year period, they all are very, very similar. Not the same, but similar in how they build teams, how they lead teams. So I think you've got a lot of esprit de corps there, keeping kind of the same continuity, different schemes, whatever, but the same mindset of leadership. I think John Spytek, because of his relationship with Brady, it does not concern me as much being a first-time guy. But you are now seeing an semblance of a group of winners, of guys with proven track records. You now have guys walking into rooms who've been there, done that. Now, you may not believe this because maybe you're just an NFL fan. NFL players are fans of they just love football. So they all know who Chip is. They all know he's had his struggles as a head coach too, but they all know what he's done offensively. And when he sits in those rooms and starts drawing things up, when he's able to bounce things off of Patrick Graham and Patrick Graham's able to bounce things off of them, when practice is competitive. I last year at training camp, I told you nearly every day the offense was just incredibly disappointing. And I don't remember who it was, so please forgive me, but it wasn't me, but someone sent me an email and I believe I read it on a question and answer podcast, but it was the person said to me, do you feel like it's the defense is that dominant or is maybe just the offense that bad? And I said, I think that's a very good question. And because of all the injuries to the defense, I don't think you got to see it holistically. But I think you're going to see the offense because I know how Chip Kelly runs practice. He is going to attack practice the way he will attack a game. So that defense is going to get a workout. That defense is going to see some different wrinkles. And I think it's just going to make PG's defense even better. 100% even better. And for that, I think that's a super good thing. So again, I think when you start to look at the sum of all the parts being built in the desert, you are seeing the exact framework for what the Raiders wanted. Culture change, They wanted a mentality change, which is different than culture. And the third thing was an absolute in every area commitment to winning. I heard something about Pete Carroll's first interview with the Raiders. And I was told this by a member of the Raider organization. I want to get one more person to verify it. So I hope to drop that nugget to you this week. But something he did in that first interview that I'm told lit up the room, just lit it up. And I thought, and so I once I get confirmation, I'm going to share it with you. But I think Pete brought that instantly. Now, I got a phone call last night from a buddy of mine who's a media member on the East Coast, asking me about some alleged comments that didn't come from Belichick, but somebody near him. Now, I have not read them or seen them, but I totally trust my buddy that they're out there saying that Belichick was angry that the Raiders hired Pete Carroll. I'm going to just say this right now. I do not believe that at all. And um, I believe I have excellent reason to not believe that. As I told you, and I'm the one that broke the story, Pete Carroll, excuse me, Tom Brady and uh, Bill Belichick did talk. I didn't break that story, but I broke the fact that a source very close to the situation told me that Tom and Bill were really working on the healing of their relationship. They understood the benefit that each brought to the other's life, and that the conversation between Belichick and Brady was Brady seeking advice, getting information, and Bill being more than willing to help him. I reached out to that person again I don't remember if it was last night or really, really, really this morning. I think it was last night, but late. And just said, "Hey, I was told there's this report," and they said, "No." And this person knows Bill very well. No, Bill was not mad. I said, "Okay, just making sure." So again, you're welcome to believe whoever you want. I'm just telling you, I think the information I've given you when it has been about Bill Belichick has been extremely accurate. I'm just throwing that out there. Um, I am hearing a lot of different names for position coaches. I think this is going to be really interesting. And in NOLA this week, I'll be talking to a ton of people, gathering massive amounts of information. So there's an interesting cast of characters being assembled in the desert. And I think Raider Nation now is starting to get a vision of where this is going, what this is going to look like, how it's going to permeate and develop. And I think that that should be exciting to you just to kind of see where it's headed. And I don't want to hear one more person say to me, yeah, but Pete's 73 is not going to be here forever. Nobody's going to be here forever. That's why they call it the NFL, not for long. So we're going to have a lot more great stuff for you coming at you from NOLA. Look forward to seeing you there. God bless you all. Happy Super Bowl week. Hope you're enjoying what's going on with your Raiders.